First Paw Media. You are listening to Mushing on First Paw Media. Visit our website at mushing.com.
Hello and welcome everybody. This is Robert and you're listening to the 2024 Iditarod coverage here on the Burled Arch. And I am here with my co-host Michelle, and we have a new winner for this year's Iditarod. Dallas Seavey came under the Burled Arch and won his sixth Iditarod. He came in 9 days, 2 hours, 16 minutes, and 8 seconds with 10 dogs on that 975-mile quest. In the 52nd Iditarod, he gets a large portion of the $500,000 purse. I believe he collected $55,600. He also won the Dorothy Page Halfway Award, as well as the Northram Bank Achieve More Award that includes $2,500 in cash, $3,000 in gold nuggets, some trophies, and some other prizes that go along with that winning. Dallas has ran the race 13 times, finishing in the top 10 11 times, and in 2012, he became the youngest musher to win the Iditarod at 25. Now, 12 years later, at the age of 37, he is the winningest musher to compete in the race, and I believe that record is going to stand for a while. As we know, Rick Swenson is the only 5-time winner, and a couple of 4-time winners, including Jeff King and Martin Musher, have semi-retired. And I say semi because they could come back and go for another win. Is it possible? I doubt it, but I think, at least in our lifetime, that we will not see another 6-time winner aside from Dallas Seavey. Michelle, I know that you were watching some of the live coverage of Dallas when he came into Nome. Can you give us a quick report on that?
Sure. I didn't see him cross the finish line. I caught the interview he did with Greg Heister, and I found it really interesting, some of the things that Dallas was explaining about the race and how it was really a pivotal moment, not just because it was his opportunity to become the first 6th-time winner of the Iditarod, but because of all of the trials and tribulations that they went through this year as a team, him and his dogs, through the training runs and the mishaps that happened out there during those training runs, to the Iditarod Trail this year and the moose encounters he had at the ceremonial start, and then the moose encounter he had on the 3rd day of the race that caused him to have to take a 2-hour penalty and one of his dogs becoming injured. Thankfully, that dog is okay. But there were so many things that happened on this trail with these dogs that he did get emotional talking about the 2 dogs that would be up there for that photo finish with him, and just how special that moment was. And he got a little choked up during that portion of his questions and answers. And I just got to say that, for a 37-year-old young man, he's got a lot more to accomplish. And he really did show just how you can persevere through a lot over the training and up to the end of the race.
So the rest of the folks out on the trail are Matt Hall is going to be in 2nd place, Jesse Holmes in 3rd, Jeff Dieter is currently in 4th, Travis Beals in 5th, and Paige Drobny in 6th. And they are stretched out over about 63 miles or so. Paige is at mile 12 at the time we're recording this, and Matt Hall is about 25 miles from Nome, very near safety at mile 960. Pulling up the rear, our current Red Lantern is Bryce Mumford, followed by Josh Robbins, Lauro Eklund, Jeff Reid, Benjamin Good, and Severin Cathry. And what's interesting to note here is Bryce Mumford is currently at mile 666 with 309 miles to go. That's quite a ways. He still has several checkpoints to go, including Unalakleet, Shaktoolik, Elam, Koyuk, all of those areas he still has to go. So I'm a little concerned with him and the competitive rule with Rule 36. He is pretty far back there, and it will be interesting to see what develops in the next day or so. He still has all of the sea ice to go over, and of course his 8-hour mandatory. We did have another scratch today, and that was Calvin Doherty. Calvin Doherty had to scratch because of Rule 42. Unfortunately, we had another dog pass away on the trail. It was in Calvin's team, a young dog named Henry. He was 3 years old, and he collapsed at about 10 miles outside of Shaktoolik at around 10 o'clock this morning. Calvin attempted to do CPR on the dog, and unfortunately, it did not make it. And as Rule 42 states, just like with the other two mushers previously that had dogs expire, you have to either scratch or be withdrawn from the race, and Calvin did so at the next checkpoint where he was at. So unfortunately, we have had 3 dogs that have passed away this year and 3 mushers that had to have their race cut short. And that's sad news all the way around. Unfortunately, this has been a large dog death year, the largest, I believe, in 5 years, when a couple of dogs died back then. So Michelle has some research that she found. We found out about this dog death at around 12:30-ish or so when we got the press release. So we decided to jump on and see what we could find. And we spend a lot of time doing scholarly research for our school projects that we do. Both she and I are involved in doctorate programs, so we know how to search for relevant peer-reviewed sources, not just internet rumors and propaganda and all that. And she found a couple of stories, but they date back quite a ways, way back to the early 2000s on a couple of studies and even further back on one. So she's going to talk a little bit about that and then compare and contrast about sudden or recent onset deaths of people in endurance events like marathons and the such. Michelle, what do you have on the dog studies first?
Sure, Robert. What I found, the first article that I was able to locate had to do with fibrosis of the heart. Was a study conducted by Barati et al. In 1997, and they titled their article "The Conduction System in Sudden Death in Alaskan Sled Dogs During the Iditarod Race and or During Training." And what their study found was that the conduction system of sudden death of dogs revealed marked fibrosis of the synovial artery node. And so that would be a death that would be sudden and not actually able to be discovered in a routine vet check, not even on an EKG. The next study I discovered was by Davis et al. From 2003 in a study they titled "Prevalence of Gastric Lesions in Racing Alaskan Sled Dogs." This one was published in the Journal of Veterinary Internal Medicine. So this one would be able for a regular person, if you will, to find quite easily. In this study, we're going to talk about gastric lesions, and the researchers found that sled dogs have a significantly higher risk of gastric lesions that are virtually undetectable and can cause dogs to expire while competing in Iditarod. The last study I was able to find in this short amount of time, you guys, was conducted in 2008 by Dennis et al., an article titled "Assessment of Necropsy Findings in Sled Dogs That Died During Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Races." And they determined their information from 23 cases over a study period from 1994 to 2006. It was published in the Journal of American Veterinary Medical Association. Again, easy for you guys to find this one as well on your own. It was published in 2008. Basically, aspiration of gastric contents or aspiration pneumonia. They said that unexpected death is a rare event among conditioned sled dogs during competition in endurance races. Potentially life-threatening conditions of dogs that are associated with periods of long-distance physical exertion include aspiration pneumonia, gastric mucosal lesions, and severe rhabdomyolysis. Dogs that develop clinical signs suggestive of these conditions should be excluded from strenuous activities. Epidemiological investigations are required to clarify the risk for death associated with these lesions in dogs competing in endurance races. Now, Robert, that sounds to me like able to get these testing done for gastral lesions might be quite expensive.
I don't think expense should matter, but this is what we've talked about in the past with the gastric ulcers. This is very similar to ulcers that we can get as humans, and that has been pretty well documented in the sled dog literature over the last few years. I know a lot of people in the sled dog sports are very aware of this, as well as the cardiac myopathy. And fibrosis of the heart is not as well known and may not show up on those EKGs. And remember that an EKG is taking the electric stimulus of the heart, and that's what this fibrosis can inhibit when the SA node, part of the upper part of the heart, as it fires electrically, if it is fibrous, it is not going to fire correctly. So often that is found on the EKG, but these other ailments or disorders will not be, even through routine blood work. So unfortunately, a lot of these dogs will pass away from more of these more obscure issues compared to these overarching issues like heart problems. As we talked about before, there's always genetic issues as well, but you found in your studies out of a very small group of dogs that they passed away from several of these ailments, and they were
the gastric lesions and the aspiration are the two most common results of dog death in an event like the Iditarod.
So let's talk a little bit about how it compares to human endurance athletes, in particular with marathons. And I found that this really interesting, and I would bet the ratios are pretty close to the same. So a study shows that a chance of a human dying in a marathon is 0.75 out of 100,000. And most people die after the race in the first 24 hours. The cause of death is often undiagnosed heart disease in men over the age of 45, and that was the cause of death in most of those cases. Remember, it is a very rare occurrence. Only one person died of hypernatremia, which is water intoxication. And you can think about how that would cause effect if you're out on a marathon and you're just chugging water along. Of course, you can be intoxicated by water, and that's what that means. So between 2000 and 2009, when this study was done, only 28 people died, and all of those had died mostly after that 24-hour mark. And that's pretty common in sled dogs as well. So a lot of times dogs will pass after a run for several reasons, whether it be gastric pneumonia or anything like that will be a cause of that. So what does all this mean? First off, very few dogs do pass away because of overexertion, but of course it can happen. 3 dogs in 1 year in a relatively short amount of trail is cause of alarm as well. But it does happen. Anytime you have hundreds of dogs, or in the case of marathons, hundreds of people running at a time, that can easily result in illness or injury, and of course, in the rarest occasion, death. Now, of course, there's all sorts of conspiracy theories going around, like was there poisoning? Was there some kind of threat on the trail from somebody that was, nefarious? We have no idea at this time. We cannot report on that. But I would say that that something has to happen. Of course, this cannot continue at this rate. I would imagine in the off season, the Iditarod will spend quite a bit of time on this, and it will be interesting to see how this plays out. In my opinion, I think that not only is this a really big PR problem for Iditarod, but they're going to have to act quickly, diligently, and swiftly on this. They're going to have to do something to sort of calm the swell of all of the things that are swirling around with this. And I would bet that the first thing that they do is they become less transparent. I know we don't want to hear that, but I would bet that they are immediately going to take those live streaming cameras down from the Insider. Michelle, what do you think about that?
I don't know that any of these incidents were caught on the live stream cameras, but if they were, I mean, that's a way for them to maintain transparency. No one wants to see that. No one wants a dog to die. No one wants a person to become injured or die. This is a tragic situation all around. What I have found interesting in this year's situation, this isn't what we normally hear about, and this is going to sound a little sideways, but typically the dogs have usually been dying on teams that were going awful fast in an awful short amount of time. And we would say that they were running their dogs to death. That's been said before for a handful of mushers that don't need to be named tonight. That's not this situation. A couple of these guys were rookies. One of them, it was his second go at Iditarod. They were very, how do you want to say this? Conservative in their runs. And they were being, monitored, if you will, by the veteran mushers for the dogs that they were running. Reddington's and Seavey, Mitch Seavey. And that means that they were on strict run rest schedules. Now, Hunter Keefe might not have been under that strict of a guideline because he's successfully finished before, but I would imagine that the Reddingtons had him still under their wing running on a fairly strict run rest schedule. He was hanging in there in the top 15 for the entire race. Although he was up there, he wasn't battling down the trail at unheard of speeds. These were conservative mushers running well-trained dogs, which leads me to believe that we seriously could be looking at some sort of genetic disorder, such as those gastric lesions.
It would be interesting if it is genetic, if all of these dogs were related somehow. There is a relatively closed gene pool when we're thinking about these high-performance dogs. And since they are from the larger kennels with the Seaveys and the Reddingtons and whatnot, I would be interested to note if a lot of these dogs were related somehow. If you recall, the last time a couple of dogs died in the race, they were with Lance Mackey's team, and of course they were all related pretty dang closely. When you have a very closed breeding pool, a lot of times those genetic issues can pass along. We have two dogs that are relatively closely related, and both of those dogs have seizures, and it's probably a hereditary deal because they are so closely related. So, of course, we're not veterinarians. We can only speculate, but we wanted to give you our side of the coin with this and hope that something is figured out. Hopefully the rest of the race goes off without a hitch and we don't have any other issues out there. Of course, it's very devastating to the kennels and the folks that raise these dogs, and of course the mushers as well. A couple of these guys were rookies. This was their first run, and here we have them having to scratch because of the of the dogs passing away. So there's not a right or wrong answer to this. Unfortunately, we don't have any answers at all right now. 3 of the dogs at the time of recording, or excuse me, 2 of the dogs out of the 3 at the time of recording have had their initial necropsy, and they found inconclusive. So I guess it was not the lesions or the pneumonia, at least at this point. So now they'll do a more fine-tuned necropsy. So they'll start looking at tissues and those sorts of things to try to find out any other issues. And we'll see much later down the pipe if something will come up. But I guarantee something will be done in the off season to either thwart this somehow or find a way to deal with it, at least on the PR front, because it does not look good for Iditarod today, does it?
No, it doesn't, Robert. It doesn't look good for the entire sport.
So next topic, which is an interesting one, and it has to do with a comment that we got on Facebook last night. And one of the commenters said, it's a longtime listener, and he said, I wonder if Michelle is going to go off script again tonight. And there's no reason that we should, because I am not an Iditarod musher. And if you've listened to us for any amount of time, you know that I have not competed in Iditarod, but at least I have a perspective of being a dog musher for 30 plus years, and I have seen a heck of a lot out on the trail. So when somebody says that you can only comment on a podcast or some type of commentary unless you have experience in doing so, I would counter in saying that think about everybody else that's in the media. How many people that are in the media have experience on what they're reporting on? Of course, in the NFL, there's a lot of analysts and commentators that are former players. But by and large, people that report on sports are reporting on it because either number one, it's their job, or number two, it is their passion. And that is why we sit here day in and day out doing this podcast from our point of view. Our goal is to provide the best information that we can from our experience and our knowledge and be able to pass that along to listeners who may not be as informed as we are. We have never said that we're an expert in one aspect or another, but at least we are taking the time to provide information, hopefully the best information that we have, to our listeners, and I think that we're doing a pretty good job of it. Michelle, do you have anything else to add on to that?
Just that this person was calling me out as the non-Iditarod dog musher, not you, which is fine. I always have said on here openly and candidly that I consider myself a dog handler. And so again, like Robert said, not everybody that provides you reporting on a story has experience on what they're reporting on. We have always tried to give valuable information with a different type of a spin, if you will, a different purview on dog mushing and Iditarod, and we've always been able to provide you guys, I feel, with valuable entertainment.
Yeah, and of course, I welcome anybody else that is covering the sport in any manner that they're doing it, whether they're doing it on Facebook or on blogs or other podcasts or videos or whatever they're doing. I commend them for doing it. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort to be able to sit down here day in and day out and report on this race. We do it because we're passionate about it. We do it because it's our lifestyle, and we will continue to do it. And I welcome anybody that would think that they could do as good as or better than us. Come on as a show, on our show as a co-host. We would welcome to have you on, and we would love to have the back and forth commentary with that as well. So with that said, if you would like to come on and be a co-host with us for the rest of the week or next year, we welcome that, and we would love to have you a seat at our table. Otherwise, if you do not enjoy our coverage, we have no qualms. If you quit listening, unsubscribe, or do whatever you want to do, we will still be here providing the best information that we can. And I welcome any comments, good, bad, or indifferent, for sure. So let's jump over to our interview that we did. This time, Michelle is talking to Iditarod veteran, volunteer superhero, if you will, and number one checker at the Yentna Station Roadhouse checkpoint. It is Meredith Mapes. Stay tuned.
Okay, guys, I am sitting here at Yentna Station. We finally arrived, and I'm going to talk with Meredith Mapes all about this checkpoint. She is a Iditarod veteran, now a volunteer for both the Junior Iditarod as well as Iditarod. So let's hear what she has to say all about Yentna Station. Meredith, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Starting the sleep deprivation early. Yeah.
Right. You were saying there was 58 people that were bunked up here last night, and you've got your columns all set up, and I can see from the trackers that the mushers are already, all of them have left Willow, and they're on their way headed towards us. So what happens as they arrive?
Yeah, so as they arrive, the Gaberzak family that owns the checkpoint, they kind of set everything up. They split all the family members up and their friends that are here, and kind of have spots for each one of them to do their thing. So there's people that are actually physically checking the mushers in and having them sign the check sheets. There's people that are taking their bibs off because they have to do that here, so they'll get flown up to Nome and put back on the mushers in safety. The mushers don't have to worry about losing them or getting them dirty on the trail or anything like that. They have a couple posters that they'll have all the mushers sign here, and then they'll give them their heat and their straw and everything if they want to camp here, if they want to camp out on the river. And then, like, us comms volunteers will be taking all the information that we get from the checkers and inputting them in the physical system that goes up on the race standings online. There's the veterinarians here that'll be examining the dogs at the checkpoint down there, too, on the river, and making sure the dogs are all still healthy to continue, which they better be at this point because we're only 40 miles in.
So at this checkpoint, is it typical for mushers to go ahead and stop for the night?
Not for the more serious racers. Most of them, I think, are going to want to run a longer run because we're only like somewhere between 40 and 45 miles into the race at this point. And most of the ones that are actually racing to win are going to want to go 50, 60, 70 miles at least. So they might go all the way to Squetna, or they might camp just before Squetna or the other side of Squetna. And the people that camp here are probably going to be like rookie mushers that are running their first Iditarod, or the ones with puppy teams that they want to break their runs up into 40, 50-mile runs and keep them all even for the whole race all the way up.
That's interesting. And speaking of Squetna, about how far is it from here?
It depends on the trail every year. It's somewhere between like 30 and 40 miles, I think, usually.
Okay. And so once they get past these first two in quotes, checkpoints, that's when stuff really starts to happen, doesn't it? And we'll start to see the mushers spread out more and more. So from here, they look like they're pretty clumped up right now, just kind of tracking down the trail. But as they get past us, where we are at Yentna, and then past Squetna, it does start to thin out then, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. The first mushers, they'll be resting only like 3-4 hours at a time, and they're doing much longer runs. So they'll be in Rainy Pass or Nikolai before the mushers are really leaving, like Finger Lake and Rainy Pass on the backside. So the first mushers will be pushing really far ahead to get to their 24, and the back of the pack mushers are taking their time and enjoying the journey.
I don't know what's worse. A group of screaming children or a group of screaming dogs?
Both. I think they're both loud.
They're both pretty rough sometimes. So for everybody listening, there's probably 30 kids in Yentna Station right now, varying in ages from, 2 or 3 to about 15 or 16 years old, and everybody's having a good time. And of course they got loud, like mom's on the phone, and here we are with that. So hopefully everybody was able to hear what Meredith was saying. Meredith, what's your favorite part about Yentna Station?
I love getting to hang out with the family here. They welcome the volunteers and the people, the mushers that stop here, into their family for the day, and they get to feed you a big spaghetti dinner, and it's nice to just feel welcomed out here.
Absolutely. I'm feeling that. It is a different type of environment for sure from what the fans and spectators may get to experience that go to the ceremonial start as well as the Willow restart. Not a lot of the fans come out this far. It's more of us locals, I think, that do come out this far. And we know to come out this far because then you're going to get a better glimpse at the musher and especially the dogs. And then we can kind of cast opinions on who we might want to buy dogs from later in the off season, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm always watching people's teams. I'm like, ooh, I like that dog. Who are they out of? Are they intact? Yeah.
Can I borrow that one?
Yeah, exactly. That one seems like a good lead dog.
Right. But, I mean, that is how some of us do it. I know Robert has come out before, and he's actually gotten dogs from mushers in the off-season from that very observation. So it is a different way of really learning about the race. And from a musher's perspective, that's what we're out here to do. We're out here kind of sizing up the field and competition, whether it's competition for you or I or not. We want to know what's out there and what's up and coming as far as the pedigrees go. And it was interesting when I was in the dog lot earlier at the restart, I found myself doing exactly that. I was like, oh, that team looks pretty nice. That guy's got big dogs. I'm wondering how slow they're going to be. And, and you find yourself doing a little bit of that. And then I had to remind myself, I'm not here like it's an auction. I can't be buying dogs today. We're here for something else. So do you ever find yourself kind of doing that and having to pull yourself back?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was watching part of the live stream at the start here and watching some of the teams, and I was like, oh, I've had relatives of this dog and that dog in my team before, and that one looks like it's better than the one that I have at home and stuff like that. So very much so.
Yeah, our listeners know that Robert and I have actually, we've gotten a lot of Brenda Mackey's dogs, and the students that come out from UAA and APU absolutely adore her dogs, and Ruby is one of our rock stars. And when I saw Brenda earlier, I had to tell her, I'm like, so everybody loves Ruby. And she said that was my problem too. So she gave us one with a lot of personality, but it's been a lot of fun. I do appreciate you taking some time with me. How long do you think it's going to be till they get here?
I'd say probably about 2 hours. They're moving really fast on the river this morning or this afternoon, so I think it's going to be a really fast run.
Yeah, I agree, and the river didn't seem as mogully as it has been in the past, so I think it'll be good. I did see or experience a couple of spots on the river where I was like, oh, Musher might dump it right here, because it was just really wavy and in the wrong direction wavy. So it'll be interesting to hear how many of them actually dump over and have to reset. But thanks for taking the time. I do appreciate it.
No problem.
So there you guys have it. Meredith Mapes, Iditarod finisher and chief checker at Yentna Station. I hope you enjoyed that. We have a few more of those interviews to go, including a brand new volunteer to Iditarod coming up from Atlanta, Georgia. So stay tuned to that later in our coverage this week. And we have a few more musher interviews as well. We've been trying to spread these out a little bit so we could have one air every night that we're here recording. So up next, we are going to do our musher profile of the evening. Remember, we will continue to do these even if a person has finished Iditarod. So who do we have tonight, Michelle?
Well, we're going to feature Jeff Reid. Jeff has quite the story. He really wanted to come up and learn all about how to become a dog musher because of the relationship he had with a pet. And that pet happened to pass away. And he thought what a great idea it would be to get another pet, but not just any pet. He wanted a pack of sled dogs. And Jeff met Allie Zirkle and Alan Moore and learned all about dog mushing from them. In fact, he has grown his kennel with some of their dogs. He calls his kennel the Frozen Trident. And I think that's a cool name, being that, that has to do with the ocean, and our oceans up here do freeze. So I think that Jeff is on his way to becoming a great dog musher. He's competed in some pretty big races, and now they are not only raising puppies, but they're also raising babies as their family is growing and expanding up in the Two Rivers area. Of note, I did want to mention that Jeff read Gary Paulson's book, Winter Dance, which I'm sure a lot of you have, but that's what sparked his idea.
Yeah, I remember when we first took over the Mushing Magazine Facebook page, one of my first posts was, what is your favorite book about sled dogs or sled dog racing? And I would say that by far the number one book on that list was Winter Dance. I remember reading that way back in the day, around the same time I watched the movie Iron Will, and within a very short time, both of those things were very, very influential in my start in the sport for sure. So if you have not read Winter Dance, and God forbid if you've never seen Iron Will, definitely check both of those out. And you may be like Jeff and signing up for Iditarod one day and running it just like him.
I'm just wondering when Winter Dance becomes a movie.
I think that they did something in the movies about that way back in the day, if I'm not mistaken. If I am, let us know in the comments. Tell us if we're solely off base on that. Did they ever do a Disney version or a Hallmark version or whatever of Gary Paulson's Winter Dance? So before we go tonight, remember this is a 24-hour-a-day race, and a lot will be happening between now and when we are on tomorrow. But I have to tell you guys some of the things that are going on during Iditarod week in Nome. And they do a heck of a lot of stuff. And I'm going to talk about today, March 12th. So they have stuff going on literally 24 hours a day in Nome. And if you've ever been to Nome, you could think, what in the world am I going to do up here to bide my time while people are coming in? So today, starting at 8 o'clock, they did a youth fundraising concession stand. They did health screenings, a basketball camp, a basketball tournament, proper hide fur drawing, an arts and crafts fair, another camp, a fine art show, a gift shop, a quilting workshop, a dog sled ride, tobacco cessation clinics, a ranger talk at the National Park Service, some WIC stuff for women and infant children, a museum tour, a reindeer handicraft workshop, Iditarod Kids Club, ladies only crafts and haircuts, excursion hike with the National Park Service, a beading workshop, a women's conference, and from 11 p.m. to 11 p.m. to 5 a.m., they had DJs and other artists rocking around the town at some of the bars and watering holes. So evidently there is a heck of a lot to do in Nome during Iditarod week. When I was up there, the couple of 3 times that I've been up there mainly to do my podcast. So I would spend most of my time either out at the chute or back and forth into my hotel room so I could download the coverage that I got to upload to the podcast. And I did not get a chance to partake into all of these other activities. And it is of note that Michelle has reserved our rooms for next year for Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night as well. And I'm excited. We were supposed to go up there this year, but we didn't get up there in time because we misplayed when the dates were going to be. But I'm excited to go up. Aren't you, Michelle?
I sure am, Robert. It would be something to see watching those mushers cross that finish line.
So the way it works, guys, when mushers come in, they come in, like we said, 24 hours a day. There is no stop there. And what ends up happening is, I don't know if they're doing the siren anymore, but if they are, the siren will sound when the mushers are coming up off of the sea ice there and then onto the road. So they do that so everybody can get away from whatever they're doing, and obviously they're doing a heck of a lot according to this list, and they come out to greet the mushers and have photos taken and all of that 24 hours a day. And I was watching a little bit of that coverage when Dallas came in. I was actually on hold for tech support for one of our websites, so I didn't have the sound on or anything, but I was amazed how quickly it was over. They were calling it the championship stream or something like that, and he came in at around 5:30-ish or so, and by 5:50 they had moved everything out, and he was out of the chute, and everybody was walking away. So it happened really quickly, and I would imagine as folks start coming in all the hours of the evening, there will be less and less people there, unfortunately. I know that there have been mushers in the past. I think Lance Mackey was notorious for this, that he made it his duty to go out and greet as many mushers that would come in as possible. He would go out, shake their hands, congratulate them, and a true sportsman of the sport as well. And I'm sure that there are others that have done that as well. So I'm going to leave you guys with the question of what would you do up in Nome if you were there visiting during Iditarod week, aside from watching the mushers come in? Would you go to the quilting workshop? Would you do the dog sled rides? Would you do the snowshoe hike with the park rangers? Would you learn how to do arts and crafts? Would you go to a tobacco cessation clinic? What would you do? Michelle, out of that list, what would be on your list to do today?
I'd be going to the watering holes.
Watering holes, dang near 24 hours a day. And that is interesting. Up here in Alaska, typically our bars close really late. I remember when we were up in Nenana at the start of the 2012 or whatever it was, 2016, whatever serum run we were there. And we were at the bar at 4 o'clock in the morning there in Nenana, having a good old time. And they closed it up, last call at 4:30 or something like that. And within a couple of hours later, they were back open. So I would imagine that that's what they're doing in Nome as well.
Absolutely, Robert. Sounds like it's party time.
Okay, guys, so we will be back tomorrow. We should have a whole bunch of other mushers come in. Hopefully, we'll have some stories develop on a positive front. Hopefully, we have a good day out on the trail. And remember, there's still a heck of a lot of racing going on, and we will be here all the way through the banquet. Tomorrow, we'll probably talk about those middle to the back of the Packers. We'll talk a little bit about the Widow's Lamp and the Red Lantern. We'll talk about the banquet and all that's leading up to. And then on Sunday, on our last night, we will talk about who won what, talk about some of the speeches, and then we'll talk about our favorite story of Iditarod. What is your favorite story? I would be interested to know.
Here's a little nugget for everybody. I would be willing to bet that Wally Robinson might overtake Pete Kaiser in the night.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. So we will see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Are you a fan of the great outdoors? Do you enjoy the thrill of speed and adventure? Then listen up. Introducing Mushing, your ultimate guide to the exciting world of dog-powered sports and mushing. Whether you're a seasoned musher or just starting out, Mushing has got you covered. Get ready to immerse yourself in captivating stories of incredible sled dog races, expert training tips from seasoned professionals, and gear reviews to help you make the right choices for your team. From the breathtaking landscapes of Alaska to the snowy trails of Scandinavia, Mushing takes you on a thrilling journey through the world of dog-powered sports. Don't miss out on the latest issue, packed with exclusive interviews with top mushers, in-depth articles on sled dog nutrition, and stunning photography that will transport you to the heart of the action. So whether you're dreaming of competing in the Iditarod or simply want to learn more about this incredible sport, Mushing is your go-to resource. Subscribe now and get ready to unleash your passion for mushing. Visit our website at mushing.com or find us on your favorite podcast platform. Mushing, where the spirit of adventure meets the power of the pack.